We need to know as moms and dads that there are benefits of boredom. It's a fact of life. They'll be bored their whole lives here and there. And so they can learn how to handle it without becoming, disagreeable, dangerous people.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, according to research, children on school summer holidays will reach peak boredom by August 1st. A study of 1,000 parents with school-age kids found that 65% feel overwhelmed at the prospect of keeping their little ones entertained over summer, and 63% admit to really struggling to think of educational yet entertaining activities to do as a family during the summer holiday. While kids will complain 5 times a week about being bored when school's out, about a third of the parents that were interviewed said that their children's desire for screen time is really a intense barrier for them. 68% admit that they'll have more screen time than they would like to give their kids. Dr. Kathy, this is kind of a cry for help for many parents. I mean, we feel it in our house that there's just this monotony of summer that usually drags on, and about August 1st, it reaches this, fever pitch, and it's just a challenge for many families kind of in the mode of summer. And then we, maybe feel a little bit guilty wishing that summer would end and school would begin again and we could all go back to some kind of routine. What advice or encouragement would you give us?
The first thing that I want to say is that you're not alone. So you don't need to feel, guilt and shame that you haven't figured out how to keep your kids entertained and, that they're struggling and that they're demanding more screen time. And if you've given into that, especially if you've given in occasionally, it's okay. It's not going to kill them. So give yourself some grace. These are hard days. I totally understand that. I do think that we can be encouraged to understand that there are benefits of boredom. Now, what you can't say that to a 7-year-old and have them go, okay, great, and they'll skip away. But we need to know as moms and dads that there are benefits of boredom. It's a fact of life. They'll be bored their whole lives here and there. And so they can learn how to handle it without becoming, disagreeable, dangerous people. It gives us a chance to be creative and to imagine, to be curious. We have time to spend with God. That would be an amazing thing that we could use with these minutes of opportunity. We learn character qualities like initiative, where we figure out what to do when mommy's not the entertainment. Like you guys are not, running a cruise ship in the entertainment department. You're moms and dads and you've got your own responsibilities. So let the kids demonstrate some initiative and figure out what to do when they don't like being just a lump on a couch, if you will. And I think those of us who are adults who are busy would believe that it's a gift to have space. It's a gift to have some quiet time. And I wonder if we model that, and I wonder if we explain that to our kids at all. I also want to say that I believe that children who don't know who they are more likely to be bored because they have a hard time figuring out what to do. So when you teach your children that they're creative, then they're sitting there going, now what could I do this morning? I don't like just sitting here. Oh, mom said I'm creative. And then they look around and they remember there's a craft box over there. Or they think about, writing a puppet show and performing it with their brother because they know grandma and grandpa are coming over for dinner in a couple of nights. Like that would be an amazing thing. But I think when children know who they are, they're more likely to be able to figure out what to do because we do what we do because of who we are. So maybe that's an encouragement in the remaining weeks of summer.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I really, like that idea of helping kids kind of see who they are and walking through that. I think that kind of speaks to this reality that just like our kids are all kind of unique and probably handle this differently, summer break is really unique. And there's some benefits of having a rhythm of a long break for families and for kids too. How can we capitalize on that? What should be some natural things that we should look to do because we do have space and time?
Well, in the remaining weeks, I wonder if there would be enough time for a significant project you've always wanted to do. Like, is this the summer you could have stripped and changed the wallpaper in the guest bathroom? And maybe you would have taught your 12 and 15-year-olds how to help with that. I don't think it's too late for that. Or, I don't know, painting the deck or, getting rust off of a bike so that you can donate it and it won't look quite so old and decrepit, if you will. So some type of a project that maybe the family gets involved in that the children love helping with. And daddy, look what I did. And, where you teach a kid how to use a hammer. It's more likely in the summer with the space and the time that maybe that could happen. And the other thing I think of, and I don't want anyone to turn us off because I don't want them sick of me talking about this, but we will say always here at Celebrate Kids that we should be serving other people. When we get our eyes off of ourselves, we discover we're not the center of our own universe, and we discover gifts and talents and joys and delights. Just spoke to a group of 16 to 25-year-olds, and I asked them, how many of you did not think you would like serving and you resented starting, but then you loved it? Probably 80% of the hands went up. Then I asked them, how many of you discovered a skill about yourself, a skill you did not know you had? I would say at least 80% of the hands went up. So yes, they could serve. They could weed their neighbor's garden. They could serve, and disinfect toys in the nursery at church. They could play the piano at a nursing home. They could write, happy notes and drop them off at a nursing home. I mean, there's 1,000 things kids can do independently of others and with others, which is my favorite, because then they talk about it and they discover what they learn about themselves and God and each other. And I would encourage you, every Tuesday night or every Saturday morning between now and the start of the school year to get out of the house as a family unit would be ideal and minister. You can even let your 7-year-old choose one Tuesday night what to do and your 13-year-old choose what to do the next Tuesday night. And some of you have heard this example before. My niece Katie was a college scholarship athlete in soccer and went to 3 different countries in the world on mission trips as a soccer player. And I know of kids in my church that go and play soccer in a courtyard at a somewhat inner city apartment complex. And kids come out of the apartments and learn how to play soccer. And it's a witness and a little bit of an evangelism activity we have going on at my church. And anybody can do it. But soccer kids are going to go, oh, I could do that. I mean, that wouldn't be scary. And I think that would be really exciting between now and the start of the year.
I love that, Dr. Kathy. I think that those are really helpful, because we do have the space and the time to step into those things. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that, there are incredible pitfalls too to having such a long break for summer vacation. I mean, we take a vacation, we might do something, might do a big project, but there are other things that kind of carry on with having such a long break for some of us from school, for others of us inside of kind of friend groups or rhythms at church or what have you. What would you say are some of the pitfalls of, looking at summer as kind of a big break, an extended break from any kind of routine or rhythm? And how should we avoid falling into them?
Yeah, that's another great question. I know when I taught second graders, it was very clear to me how much children forgot over the summer, how much I know the first graders were prepared for, so they'd come into second grade strong, and how much I would talk to the third grade teachers of my, students from the previous year to discover how many of them had forgotten so much of what they had learned. So that's true for adults and mostly true, and especially true for children, that it's easy to not remember, especially fact-based information that we don't use. So one of the ways we avoid the pitfall is that we rehearse. And I bet a lot of parents, I pray that you've had your kids read this summer. I pray that you've kept reading to them. And I pray that you have found reasons to do math. And maybe it's, every morning or every other morning, devotions and one math worksheet and chores before you're allowed to play outside. Maybe there's been a rhythm that you've discovered there. So practicing facts is important. Applying truth would be super cool. Wisdom is the application of truth. And that's what you have time for in the summer. So if you know that in the spring, your children were learning about frogs and toads, go to the zoo and spend more time in the amphibian building than you want to. If you know that your kids were learning about compound words, go to the bakery and talk about cupcakes and then buy your favorite one. And, just the application of truth is wisdom. And that's what you have time to do in the summer. I would really value that for you. That would help kids forget less. And it would give them a rhythm that would be so positive throughout the year. If you teach your children in the remaining weeks of the summer that we should apply what we learn, what if they come home 2-3 weeks into the school year and they're learning cursive writing and they want to apply the skill. They're so proud of themselves that they're old enough now to learn cursive writing. And you let them choose a piece of stationery and you let them send a note to Aunt Kathy. And you get to read their beautiful cursive writing. And then Aunt Kathy calls them to say, thanks for the note. You're such a good writer. Like that'll preach to these kids that they're valuable and that the skill they've learned matters. And we can start that habit and that rhythm now when we have a little bit more free time.
As Dr. Kathy was talking today, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of Luke chapter 7, and I'll begin reading at verse 36. When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who had lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood with him at his feet, weeping, She began to wet his feet with her tears, and then she wiped them with her hair and kissed them and poured perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. And Jesus answered him, Simon, I have something to tell you. Tell me, teacher, he said. 2 people owed money to a certain moneylender. One owed a 500 denarii and another 50. Neither of them had enough money to pay him back, so he forgave debts of both of them. Now, which of them loved him more? Simon replied, I suppose the one who had the bigger debt forgiven. You've judged correctly, Jesus said. And then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You didn't give me water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not kiss me, but this woman, from the time that I've entered, has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she put perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her sins are many, but they've been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little, loves little. Jesus then said to her, your sins are forgiven. And the other guests began to say to themselves, who is this who even forgives sins? Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. I was reminded of this passage when Dr. Kathy was talking about identity. I think that our identity makes us live differently in the time and place that we're in. For our kids, and maybe even for ourselves, we're continuing to understand, reinforce, and build who we are and how we're really called to live and engage the world. What if for our kids in this moment, as they're bored, we just help them understand that that might be a feeling that you have? It's the same way that this woman had a feeling that she was sinful, as everyone else around her had this feeling that she should just be someone who lives in her sin, maybe lives in rejection. But Jesus stood with her and helped her really see, almost by his presence. She saw that her identity was not that, and that she could approach somebody who she respected, maybe more than respected, who she, I would say, craved to give her a renewed identity. Sometimes when our kids are maybe in the middle of their confusion or frustration with being bored, it's because they don't like that identity. They don't like the identity that needs to be entertained all the time, or needs to have someone entertain them all the time. And they need some muscles built on what their real identity is. What if as parents in these moments, we help them see, you're not a boring person. So how can we resolve that? How can we build up an identity of who they are? Maybe we need to think through their smarts and help them understand that. That leads me to the fact that Dr. Kathy just launched a new online course. It's actually about the smarts as we get ready to close out summer, maybe take these times and celebrate or awaken smarts for our kids, knowing that they're going to be maybe stepping back into more of a school-based routine. But it's also a chance for us to help our kids build their identity, help them get, I would say, maybe wheels on who they understand themselves to be and what gifts they have. This course is phenomenal, and I just think that it's something that you should do. You can find out more information on it by going to our website, celebratekids.com. Now, on behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Thanks for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.